11 o'clock this morning, the 129 brave and battered souls of the Tour de France began the hot trek north to Bordeaux. With no more mountains, the time has come to enjoy the 3 remaining days of the race. The motorcyclists too have also agreed to resume normal service after yesterday's strike, but the photographers they carry have agreed no more photographs of the Kelme team, as they still blame their team manager Alvaro Pino for knocking down a motorcyclist on Wednesday. With the mountains gone, the flat route is also likely to keep the Kelme team in obscurity. It's 226 kilometers of passive countryside between Hendaye and Bordeaux. There are just 2 sprints along the way. The happiest man of this tour has to be Bjarne Riis of Denmark. After promising his new team the victory during the winter, he now seems to have got it. Overall, he leads his young teammate Jan Ullrich by almost 4 minutes, and the Frenchman Richard Virenque is third. The favourites have all faltered. Olano, Rominger, Indurain are outside the top 6. Chris Boardman, his determination to finish this tour will soon be realised. And even Jean-Luc Mastropuis, who is in last place, he keeps gaining places overall because the riders ahead of him keep dropping out. Bordeaux is by tradition a sprinter's paradise, and so today could be another occasion for the triumphant Telecom team. Eric Zabel, who won here last year, will try to confirm his victory in the green jersey competition and will no doubt take inspiration from the fact that his team manager, Walter Godefroot, won here 3 times during his career. And the day getting off to a bright start for Eric Zabel in that green jersey at Leon at 83 kilometers covered, maximum points towards it. Frédéric Moncassin again in 2nd place, and Fabio Baldato was the man who finished 3rd.
Clear blue skies on the Tour de France again today, with a high of 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon and not a breath of wind in the air to freshen down the riders.
And to mention our competition, do take part. Try and pick the winner of Sunday's stage to the Champs-Élysées, and when you've made your selection, here's the telephone number to call: 0891 11 4400, and by the end of the day you could be the proud owner of a race leader's yellow jersey. Chris Boardman on the open roads today. His first priority, he always said when he came to his 3rd Tour de France, was to see Paris, and now I think Chris will do that. Not a lot of racing going on in the early hours of the stage today. Well, if you're a little bug, you have to be fed, and here are the riders to do that. And if you're feeling hot on the roads of the Tour, and it's very hot today, then why not take all of your clothes off? And these are the 2 leaders on the road. It's been a long promenade today in the hot sunshine, but with 50 kilometers to go, a break started by Gilles Talmont. Then he was joined by this rider, Mark Wouters, from the Lotto team, and they hold a lead of just around about 2 minutes over the field. But the chase has started now, because all of the teams with sprinters are trying to pull back those 2 riders in the escape. A little bit of oil, that should speeden things up a bit for Salvadello, as he gets back into the action and joins the tail of the bunch. There they are. Now you can see the teams who are doing the work. The TVM team at the front in those yellow jerseys of their colours, which is on their team, of course, the sprinter Jerome Blijlevens, who's had 1 stage win very early on in this year's race, and had a couple of weeks rest in the mountains.
I wouldn't exactly call it rest, dragging your body over those. A lot of the sprinters suffer greatly in the mountains, especially this year with the heat that's been there. But the big thing they have to do is try and survive the mountain stages, because they realise once they've got over the Alps or the Pyrenees, whichever comes last, there are always a couple of great stages for the sprinters, this being one of them, and the other one, the Champs-Élysées.
Champion of Holland setting the pace as they go 2 ways around the roundabout. He's on the right, and that's Martin Den Bakker. Also trying to lay down the groundwork for Blijlevens, but we've also seen the team of Telecom, largely the work there being done by Jens Hepner on the German team, and they're working, of course, for Eric Zabel. While we've seen the Refin riders up here as well, they're planning the attack in the sprint, at least for Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, who won his stage up that big climb into Toul. They're passing under the 20 kilometers to go banner now. There's our old friend who drives the route every day and parks at around the 20 kilometer banner. He'll be going back. He'll be quite used to this weather, I would think, Paul, today.
Just like back home.
And the latest time check is 1 minute 30, so they've chiseled away 40 seconds in 5 kilometers on those 2 leaders, and the pace will get quicker and quicker as we get towards the finish. And now the team car of Jean-Luc Van den Broek, and there he is, the rider himself who's ridden the Tour de France when he used to race for La Redoute. Now talking to his teammate Mark Wouters. There's not been too many appearances by Jean-Luc Van den Broek at the front of the race this year. because I think, if memory serves me right, Paul, this is the first attack of the Tour by them.
Well, certainly they've had a terrible Tour, but I think all they were thinking about was getting as many men to Paris as possible. The reason being because they just were devastated last year. Nearly every one of their best riders abandoned the race.
This year they've got 6 riders left in the race. Wouters struggled to get up to Talmont, but now he's here. He's recovered well, and they were doing their best to stay away. There's always the chance they will, but the roads here around Bordeaux, they don't really lend themselves to breakaways unless you've got many minutes over the field, because they're long and straight. It's very depressing indeed. And for the peloton, they can usually see the action with the helicopters flying above the riders in the lead in the race.
Considering this Aubervilliers team came in at the very last minute as a wild card, they've ridden an exceptionally good Tour de France. Although they only have 3 riders left, they did get a stage victory in the first week of the Tour, which I think when they go away and sum up their performance in this year's Tour de France, they've got to be very happy with.
Approaching the second sprint of the day, Zabel got the first one after 83 kilometres. We're now at 211 kilometres, which is about 130 miles. And there's going to be no sprint here for the £250 first prize. They're going to try and work together and get down to the finish. The clock counting down the time gap now. It should be around about that 1.5 minutes, might be slightly inside that, as they make their way into the last few kilometres of today's stage. And Gilles Talmont and Mark Wouters working well together. Here's the field and all of the teams. There's 3 teams up here today. It is unusual to see so many teams sharing the pace towards the end of a stage, but there are so many teams that have good sprinters in the race this year, and 3 of them are still very much in this Tour: Moncassin, Bly-Levens and Eric Zabel. And we must never forget Jamaldine Abdou-Japarov. And that's why we have the GAN team up here, TVM team, and the Telecom team working on the front of the peloton.
Those 2 riders at the front are going to have a hard time staying clear, because you've got almost 15 or 20 riders working together from the different teams here to try and pull them back. So it's going to be very difficult. The clock's still ticking by there. In fact, it's dropped again quite dramatically, and it's going to be round about 1 minute and 10 seconds.
And so, as they come up to the line, Martin Den Bakker, the champion of Holland, brings them through the gap. 1 minute and 12 seconds. They should catch them. We'll take a break.
Bordeaux has hosted the Tour more often than any other city except Paris, 75 times. And Belgian's Rick Van Looy has good cause to remember 2 of them. Back after this. In 1963, Belgian sprinter Rick Van Looy won 4 stages, including 1 at Bordeaux. But 3 years later in the same city, he was at the centre of a standoff between the riders and the Tour organisation, when doctors arrived unannounced in his hotel room to enforce the first year of dope testing. The following day, the riders got off after 5 kilometres to register their displeasure, and that was the end of hotel calls from the Tour docks.
Now, of course, the chosen riders just come in here after the race, while a crowd of about 500 spectators who usually bailed onto the line by that time wait outside for them to perform. Of course, you need rules and regulations on the race. That was obvious as early as 1904 when a couple of riders were caught taking the train. The problem is that there are now so many of them that they're making criminals out of even the most upstanding members of the cycling community.
Those are just a few of the guilty parties on the Tour, and this is the jury that convicted them, the 4-man international jury of commissaires who sit after every day's stage, having stood for most of it viewing the evidence from open-top cars. Actually, that's 3 of them. The 4th heads a team of bike commissaires who rule the roads on the Tour, and there are plenty of rules for them to enforce. Race regulations cover everything from signing in to the correct procedure for abandoning. Article 9, for example, forbids the use of mobile phones by the riders during the race. Bad news for Motorola. And anyone not wearing the official transparent Tour de France Pacamac in wet weather is in breach of Article 5. It was clothing that got Mario Cipollini fined on the first day of the Tour for wearing red shorts instead of his official team black. Being Italian, of course, Mario used the fashion defence.
Pourquoi j'aime les couleurs rouges avec la maille des champions italiens et je vais mettre comme ça. Merci.
Miguel Indurain was done for after-hours drinking, taking a bottle in contravention of the ban on feeding in the last 20 kilometres. But Mig, in a clear act of premeditation, had decided that the crime was worth the time.
Sí, yo sé que el reglamento está así, ¿no? Que si coges un bidón en los últimos kilómetros te penaliza con tiempo y con multa en dinero. Lo que pasa es que si no cojo bidón, igual me de 20 segundos pierdo un minuto o más porque estaba sin fuerza, sin energía. Entonces he preferido el coger el bidón con 20 segundos, pero el llegar un minuto antes.
As well as being docked 20 seconds, Mig was fined 200 Swiss francs, about £100, and for his first offence, Chippo was fined 50, hardly amounts which would leave either of them asking for time to pay. But photographers and cameramen face bigger penalties. If they get on the wrong side of the commissaires, they can be thrown off the race for a day, as our bike was in 1991, when Greg LeMond got in its slipstream, and the commissaires decided it didn't pull away soon enough. Even being one of the best respected cycling photographers in the world doesn't necessarily protect you. Graham Watson found himself off the race this year after a couple of incidents, including getting in the way of Mig after he'd punctured.
There's a noticeable degree of bias towards French photographers and cameramen in particular. They're allowed a little bit more flexibility as to what they do and how they do it, because it's that much harder to penalise them because they have more clout behind them.
The one group Tour law has no jurisdiction over is the public, who were happily pushing riders up the Pyrenean climbs the other day, while apoplectic commissaires almost split the peas in their whistles trying to stop them. That may be all right for them. The rest of us, though, have a living to make.
I've got to pay the mortgage. Bye.
And Graham Watson there, well, at least he'd be able to earn some money to pay for the mortgage today, because yesterday, like all the motorcyclists, they had a day off on strike. Now here we are with the race, and the gap is coming down. The last time check, 54 seconds. It was 1 minute 10 seconds when they went through that sprint in Pézac. And now we are seeing all of the teams really pile on the pressure here, Paul.
They're flying along speeds roughly 40 miles an hour at the moment, and you can see almost the difference in speed between the two riders in the front and the main field behind, as they are already in the streets of Bordeaux, the outskirts, but there's a long way to get to the finish.
But it is a sprinter's finish right down the side of the riverbanks. There's the latest time check. They're going to see that. They know, of course, that the chase down is inevitable. They just hope they can hang out there long enough to get to the finishing line first. And Gilles Talmont, who started the breakaway, who seems to have a very strange position for it. He seems very cramped.
He's really got the position of a climber, very short and sitting quite upright. Very much different to the style of Mark Wouters, who's a man from the flatlands. You see how much lower Wouters is on his bike. In fact, he's a lot more stretched and a little bit more aerodynamic.
Well, the two riders conversing surely in French there as Wouters has gone past. And they're probably deciding to try and keep on the pressure and last as long as they can. But you can see from the speed of the peloton as we look down from the helicopter here, 41 seconds now, so it's coming down rapidly. They really do want to finish it off and allow themselves time to reassess the situation before they go down into Bordeaux. That's the plan of these four teams, who are all showing the work at the front. The domestiques of the squad told to go up there, go as fast as they can, get those two boys back, and then go back into the pack, find the sprinters and try and get them to the front of the bunch. That's the plan. It doesn't always work, but at Bordeaux it usually does.
It usually does, but it will be very difficult at the end of a stage like this, because all of these teams, once they get into the outskirts of Bordeaux and hopefully have caught the two leaders, will then have to take themselves and organise one team at the front to try and pace their leader into the final few hundred metres.
Well, the two boys out front, they've passed under the 10 kilometres to go banner. That's just 6 miles from the finishing line. The field making a rather tight right-hand turn. And as you can see from the crowds again down there, it's been another well-supported day on the Tour de France, as indeed they all are. This race loses none of its magic. Even when it does appear, the winner is now known. And at the 10-kilometre banner, it is now 33 seconds, the official gap.
You see the main field of gaps already starting to open up quite a bit here because of the pressure at the front. Brian Holm for the Telecom team looking over, and strange to see that it's one of his teammates who's coming through. In fact, it's one of the Refin riders working there for Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov.
I think it's Tobias Steinhauser again from the Refin team, who's gone back. We now have little Lanroux for TVM, dreaming of taking Jerome Blijlevens to the finishing line first today. Jens Heppner from the Telecom squad He wants Zabel to win, of course. And then the Gan rider coming through there, he wants Frédéric Moncassin to win.
Eric Zabel has most certainly been the fastest sprinter of this year's Tour de France, and at all the intermediary positions he's really been picking up the points. It looks very much as if he can get a good finish today, he's going to walk away with the king of the sprinters competition.
Quite right too, and he has been the best man. He richly deserves it, because although the green jersey came into the Tour de France in the 50s really to be a subsidiary prize for the non-climbers of the race, but it would go to the most consistent daily finishers of the Tour, it was really meant for the sprinters who always struggle in the mountains. But this year, Eric Zabel has scored points as well in the mountain stages, and so he really has been a most consistent bike rider. He certainly deserves the victory for the first time when we get to Paris on Sunday.
Two riders there negotiating one of the difficult points of a run into the cities of France nowadays. Those roundabouts are very, very difficult, as we've seen once or twice over the last couple of days. One or two little accidents. That one of Neil Stevens just 2 or 3 days ago was really quite nasty, and that's the problem, and I think is going to be a big problem in the future for the cycle racing in this country.
And the peloton, split decision as they go both sides, quickly back together again. And a little bit disorganized at the front, you can see with the gaps as we come down to 25 seconds, because the roundabout has spoilt their rhythm a little bit. But the Telecom riders are very quickly back into their rhythm.
Francois Lemarchand coming through for the Gan team here. This man riding his 10th Tour de France, and he's never abandoned one of them.
No, tremendous performance by Francois. Jesper Skibby for TVM, the only Danish member of the TVM team. Good strong turn by Jesper. Looks across the champion of Holland with that red top to his jersey. That's the national jersey of the champion, and that is Martin Den Bakker. He was also the champion of the amateurs of Holland before he turned professional. Now the long empty road, not that far away at all for the two leaders. Although the peloton here altogether, there are 127 riders in this bunch today. There's only probably half of them capable of taking part in the race. The other half are just hanging at the back. There's the green jersey of Zabel. You can see him just at the bottom of our picture now, moving gently through the groups, waiting for the teams to bring back the two escapers, and then he will reposition himself probably somewhere in the region of the sprinter from France, Frédéric Moncassin.
Those two leaders are doing an excellent job to stay away from this pack. The gap is still not coming down as quickly as I thought it would. It's 20 seconds at the moment, and that's all to do with the disorganization in the main field here, as they have to negotiate all the corners and roundabouts coming into town. Looking a little bit further down the pack there, you can see the red jerseys of Refin, and they're now starting to move Jamaluddin Abdujaparov up to the front. But Eric Zabel has always been in 10th, 15th position, keeping an eye on affairs. Well, the impetus gone out of this lead group of two riders now. They're starting to feel a little bit more pain than they were before. When they were going for victory and they thought they had a chance of staying away, they were a lot stronger. Now, as they can feel the main pack closing down on them, they really start to lose morale a little bit.
Well, it looks to me to be about 8 seconds, less than that, because somebody's taken a flyer off the front, and it looks to me like it might be Brian Holm of Telecom coming across.
It's one of the Rabobank riders who jumped away there. It may well be somebody like Michael Bogert, who's an exceptionally good finisher. He surprised everybody on that finish into Aix-les-Bains there. And this is what the teams are going to have to look out for, because they've worked very hard over the last 15 or 20 kilometers. And just a moment's hesitation and a lone rider could surprise them.
Well, it's all together now. And the Rabobank rider will have to remain anonymous as he's gone back into the race group. As often somebody will try. They've been caught at the 5-kilometer banner. There it is. And now TVM have got themselves two men at the front here. The Refin riders are up here as well.
Bart Voskamp there, you saw him swing off. He'd done as much as he could to bring back those two breakaways, and his job done for the day. He'll slip further down the pack and try and recuperate and try and finish in the main field. It's up to the TVM riders at the front now. They've decided the victory is going to be theirs with their man Jeroen Blijlevens, and they have decided that they will be the team to organise the lead out.
And here comes the first attack from the front. As he goes, it looks like a Ross Lotto rider here who's trying to break clear. The Russian-sponsored team, which is largely contains Italian riders. And Ferrigato is their sprinter, so I don't imagine for one moment it's Ferrigato who's had a go. It might be Stefano Catai.
See another man Rabobank jumping across there will look for all these kind of moves. They don't have a super sprinter on the team, but they are the kind of team who can just come out of the pack in the closing kilometres. 4 kilometres to go.
And TVM are having none of it, Paul. They've just jumped on those two riders, and they're getting back to the front again. One of them, in fact, looks as though he's had a lot there. He looks as though it's Skibby. No, he's getting back onto the swing of things, dropping into third place behind Dembaka. These are 3 riders on the same team at the front. Dembaka in his champions jersey, but he's on the TVM squad. They've got 3 men at the front now. They are very, very hopeful for Jerome Blijlevens today, and it will be the 4th stage win for Holland if it happens.
Another attack coming. You see the TVM boys starting to feel a little bit tired now. They can't keep up the speed high enough to stop these attacks coming one at a time. And now looks very much like it's the team from Abdou-Japarov, the Refin boys, who are closing it down. But none of these teams strong enough now to impose the train that they had in the first week of the Tour de France. A lot of teams weakened by loss of riders and also by the fact that we've had some very hard days in the mountains.
I don't know if you're watching that TVM rider then, who sat up, but he went straight through the peloton, and he's almost down at the back of it now. Sharp left turn. It's really a sprinter's road, this, because the change of direction, it is dangerous, and sprinters love danger. That's how they live. It's part of their ambition to win stages, which are really cut and thrust. And this is the sort of finish which might well suit Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov.
May well be. There's an MG rider moving up there. They'll be thinking about Fabio Baldato, a sprinter who's normally very good at the top of hills. Not this kind of sprint today, which is very flat and ideal for the pure sprinters, men like Jerome Blijlevens or even Erik Zabel, because he really has been a rapid man. You can see Zabel trying to keep out of difficulty on the right-hand side there, trying to keep out of the wind. He doesn't want to move to the front too soon because he'll end up using too much energy.
And it looks like Christian Hens from Telecom, who was second yesterday, also shot up the outside of the peloton and nipped in very near the front. There's Baldato's team. They're the riders in the blue crash helmets in 3rd, 4th and 5th now. Hen is just behind, looking for Erik Zabel. Hen is the strong man. Now you can see the way they're all sort of rubbing shoulders and fighting for a little bit of space on the highway today, and also trying to guide the lead-out men, trying to guide their sprinters towards the finish.
2 kilometres to go, and it really is a dangerous time for the sprinters. They have to take risks. They know that if they put their brakes on, they lose 10 or 15 places in the main pack and use too much energy having to move up again, because they need to be in the top 10 or 15 positions at this time. Otherwise, if they're too far back, they're never going to make it again.
Well, Baldato is here, and his 2 men are with him, leading out the race right now. Baldato has taken on Zabel whenever he could, but he's yet to beat him in a sprint. Zabel is proving to be very, very fast indeed in this Tour. Zabel will be the rider in the green jersey. I can't see him at the moment from this angle, but he'll be took. Oh, there he is, right in the centre. He's worked his way through, as always. Frédéric Moncassin is also a rider who isn't a sprinter to beat Zabel, but now we're seeing an attack here. And it looks as though it is Gann who has gone clear, and it looks to me like the style of Chris Boardman, but they've gone over the top of him, the Rabobank. Chris Boardman made his effort there, and he's still digging deep, but he's slowly going down the line as the sprinters now go over the top of the British rider, and they're lining up for the finish. They'll see the kilometre very shortly.
Well, there is the kilometre. 1 kilometre to go for these riders. There was a good move there by Boardman, very quickly countered by somebody from the Rabobank team, but MG have decided today will be the day for Fabio Baldato, and they nailed them back very quickly. Ekimov going down the right-hand side.
Well, this is almost a traditional attempt by Ekimov, who always attacks in the last kilometre and can try and ride. He's won a stage this way in the past, but not today, because they're immediately on him, and it's the hard-riding Christian Hen, second yesterday, who's gone over the top of Vyacheslav Ekimov. This is going to be a very, very testy finish, because the green jersey now being moved through, so too Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov. And there is Zabel here in the green. Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov looks over his shoulder and sees the man he didn't want to see. A little bit of switching of wheels there now. Andre Schmil is leading out, the Lotto man, but they're moving very closely up onto the shoulder of Andre Schmil now. Zabel is waiting, but he's a long way down. I'm not so sure Zabel can get out of this one. Baldato is the rider over the left. Now Zabel sees the finish, and Frédéric Moncassin takes him on. It's going to be all the sprinters together. Oh, it's going to be a photo, but I do believe that Moncassin took it on the line, and that was a shout of sheer delight from the crowd, and that was enough for me. I think Frédéric Moncassin won the stage. Now let's have a look at this. This was a sprint royale, as the French would say. They were all in on it. The man I couldn't see though was Jerome Blijlevens. Baldato heading for the line, Schmil dropping away on the right. Then came the run of Eric Zabel in the green, coming up to the shoulder of Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov. Then the acceleration of the white jersey of Frédéric Moncassin. He gets up alongside Baldato, Zabel and himself, and as they come to the line, he's got it. So it will go Moncassin, Zabel, Baldato is the order at the finish. And just look at Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov doing what we always used to see him do fairly regularly. That's ride his bike all over the road. The other two, though, crushed him out of it. As we got the blue jersey of Baldato, the green of Zabel, and then up popped the white, and that was it. Here's the confirmation, and we can now add the name of Frédéric Moncassin to the list of sprint winners in Bordeaux. He pipped Eric Zabel, Fabio Baldato and Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov. Chris Boardman's late attack failed and he finished in 24th place. And one man who came in behind everyone else today was yesterday's winner, Bart Voskamp. He set the pace towards the end, hoping his sprinter, Jerome Blijlevens, would win the day. Instead, Blijlevens finished only 15th. And Frédéric Moncassin today joined Eric Zabel and Bjarne Riis with 2 stage wins in this tour. His other came on the first stage in Holland. And although Zabel didn't win the stage, second place was enough to confirm his victory in the green jersey points competition. Overall, though, no change at all. The top 6 riders are still headed by Bjarne Riis and Jan Ullrich, the 2 teammates at opposite ends of their careers. Chris Boardman, who is 41st, has just the weekend left now to try and get that elusive stage win. Well, this tour may have been dominated by Telecom, but the French GAN team have also enjoyed a deal of success, and this has given team manager Roger Leger some moments to savour.
Yes, it's very nice because we're beginning the tour with the second place with Chris, and the day after with the winner with Frédéric Moncassin, and after that is the objective for the first week, 1 stage for Moncassin. And after we have the green jersey, we have the yellow jersey with Frédéric Moncassin, we have the yellow jersey with Stéphane Lelot. So the first week is very nice. And after in Pyrenees, we stay in a bunch because we have 3 objectives. Today, for Frédéric, it's okay now. And Sunday on the Champs-Élysées because it's very nice stage too. I think he can win, but Isabelle, Blijlevens, Abdou-Japarov and Frédéric. I don't know who won, but they are that guy. And tomorrow also, I think, with Chris Boardman, because it's difficult in the Pyrenees too. He's tired, but he recuperated yesterday and today. And he feels good because he attacked in the last case today. And I hope he can make a good time trial tomorrow. Not for to win, but a good time trial.
And that time trial tomorrow is a long one, more than 60 kilometres. You can see how Chris Boardman gets on with us here on Channel 4 tomorrow evening at 6:30. Until then, from Bordeaux, goodbye.